So guys, now we've got one that I did a show on. I did a couple of shows on him. I talked to the FBI agent who brought him in and then dealt with him for quite a while. Ken Tokyo Joe Eto. He survived a murder attempt. When that didn't happen for him at the outfit, what happened after that? I believe his attempted assassins got killed themselves. So tell me a little bit about Tokyo Joe Eto.
There's a photograph I have from the late 50s, early 60s, and it shows Joe Ferriola and a couple of other heavyweights hanging around with a young Ken Eto. And a lot of people didn't know who Ken Eto was, but he ran the Japanese game, the gambling, Bolita, and lots of money poured into the outfit through Tokyo Joe, as they called him. And there was a rumor that perhaps Tokyo Joe was going to turn under a little bit of pressure. And so Jasper Campise put 3 slugs in the back of his head. Miraculously, he survived 3 slugs at point blank range. And if he wasn't going to turn state's evidence before, he certainly had a powerful incentive to do so now.
The words he seems to insist, as I've heard, that he was not. His intention was not. It's hard to say at this point, but he says he had no intention of flipping, and that he's not sure what the evidence was against him, but he was not going to flip until it was. I'm drawing a blank, Paul. Who was it that sent? It wasn't the Saint. It was
Vince.
It was Vincent Solano.
Solano.
He was kind of Vincent Solano, who was a union guy and a made guy up there. He kind of had responsibility. He was a capo, and which crew was it? Do you remember?
He was on the north side.
North side crew.
North side crew, and actually Ken went to Vince Solano and had a talk with him. Said, I can do this. He was looking at a tray, and I had a dude tell me once, I'm pressuring him and trying to get him to talk. And he said, what am I going to get out of this? A tray? He said, man, I can do a tray standing on my head. And I threw right then that he wasn't going to talk to me. So and that's all he had to do. But Solano, for some reason, who knows what was in his head, because Ken Eto had made him a lot of money.
A lot of money.
And he was a tough little dude. He had survived. He had been put in the concentration camps, if you will, during the World
the
War
internment
II.
camps.
The internment camps, and then came as a young man up Chicago and been around for a long time. By the time this all came down, he'd been with them for a long time and made them a lot of money in all kinds of different gambling operations, but particularly the Bolita. So it just didn't make sense. I heard one thing that these guys in Chicago got the idea to keep the noise down. They were loading their own rounds with lighter loads of powder. Now, I don't know. They had like a hit car up there. The guys in Chicago were pretty sophisticated, or tried to be. And so they used these lighter loads, and when it went into his head, it just didn't penetrate his skull. I remember I was at the hospital once, and there's a young guy had gotten shot in the head, and they said that the bullet was not a good bullet because it went in under his skin and then went under his scalp, along his skull, and then lodged up on his forehead.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so Eto was kind of the same way. Those bullets were probably lodged up underneath his scalp. He pulled himself to a neighboring, I believe it was a pharmacy that was right there, a corner store. And then that guy wouldn't help him. I think he had to dial call 911 or whatever they were. The 911 was in place then. He had to call for help for himself from a phone booth.
He
saved his own life by being smart and playing dead.
Yeah, that's right. And you look at Chicago. That is a city it's a city of neighborhoods, and you've got the Mexican town, and you've got the different towns, and you've got Chinatown where there's so much money and so much gambling. And while Ken Eto was Japanese, and there's obviously division between Japanese and Chinese, it would be much easier for him to go in and than some of these outfit guys, and because of different things going on back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, but he could go into neighborhoods and represent the outfit in ways in different communities that the outfit wouldn't go into, or a lot of these made guys. and that gave him entry into a lot of communities. And in the Asian community, there's a lot of gambling that he was able to tap into. He was smart enough to see that as a route that maybe the Italian guys didn't, just like Lenny Patrick, who we've talked about in other episodes, had that access into the Jewish communities and other Jewish gangsters. A lot of gambling there. If you can get somebody who has an in to different communities, that's really a way to go, and that's part of why he made so much money. A game like Bolita wouldn't normally be and that's huge in the Hispanic communities and huge with Asians also.
Yeah, in Kansas City, that's interesting that you should point that out, Cam. We had a large Vietnamese community moved in after the boat peoples when it started, and they moved in through the same church, Sacred Heart Church and the Don Bosco Center that the Italians moved in, the Sicilians moved into back in the turn of the century, the same neighborhoods. And Italians are getting successful and they're moving out the suburbs, and the Vietnamese are moving in and creating the Vietnamese restaurants and Vietnamese shops. And they have a love for gambling. Like you said, they have a huge love for gambling. They don't drink so much or do so many drugs, but they do love to gamble, it seemed to me like. And so they had their own bookie. It was called the King. Mm-hmm. So a friend of mine told me a story. There's a mob bookie kind of on the periphery of that neighborhood's got a joint. And he was running a sports book, and he has a lot of action going in and out of his joint. So this one Vietnamese guy had a big debt he owed to the King. So he goes down and talks to this guy's name was Larry Strada. He ends up getting killed by some other mobsters in a deal. They thought he was going to testify, but that's neither here nor there. This his middle-aged Vietnamese guy goes down to the caddy shack, Larry Strada's bar, and he starts telling him about the King. He said, man, the King, he'd take all your business. He said, he got all business down here. He'd take all your business. He said, you need to do something about King. He said, we close to the river here. And then he made a motion across his throat like he was cutting his throat. So he was trying to get out his gambling debt to convince this Italian Cosa Nostra bookie to go back and kill the kingpin of the Vietnamese book. So, I've heard a lot of stories, and some of them are true, some are not. That one had the ring of truth to it. It had a definite ring of truth that guy was trying to do that.
Playing them against each other.
Yeah.
You bet.
And another thing about Tokyo Joe is, he could testify. Vince Solano had Campise and Gattuso killed right away. Found them in their trunk of their cars, I think, maybe at the airport even. Chicago trunk music, that they have some saying like that. And so Solano knew that they could testify against him, and they didn't want to go down for attempted murder. More than likely, and he just didn't take a chance, so he had them killed. And I can't remember if he went down behind this or not. But another thing Tokyo Joe was able to do, he certainly could expose all the inner workings of what he knew about to the FBI, which gives you a lot of tips on where to go, who to work on, and maybe where to throw up some microphones or some wiretaps. But he also traveled around. He came to Kansas City during the skimming trial because they're working on the Chicago hierarchy. So they just fly him into town. They show him that picture, the Last Supper picture, where everybody's in the picture, and they say, "Now who's that?" "Oh, that's Iupa." "Okay, then who's that?" "Oh, that's Vince Solano." "Yeah, he reports to Iupa." "Who's that guy?" "That's I can't remember the other people." All of a sudden, the names are slipping. "Joey Lombardo." "Yeah, he reports to this guy." So to show the organization of the mob in Chicago, and that it is an organization that gives orders to have other people carry it to make the RICO case, that he was a storyteller for that. And he didn't know anything about the skim at all. But he was a storyteller on setting this, getting the mob name and the organization in front of a jury. And it's huge, as you know, Paul.
Absolutely. We had a similar arrangement during the Carlisi trial about how the Carlisi crew operated and who was who, and to tell the story.
Yeah.
You have to make it a story.